2024 marks the 30th year since the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act was enacted. This law is more commonly known as the FACE Act. It was signed by President Bill Clinton in 1994 in reaction to a wave of pro-life protests and sit-ins surrounding abortion facilities as people attempted to save the lives of the children whose mothers were walking inside. The Department of Justice says this law prevents, quote, violent conduct intended to injure, intimidate, or interfere with the right to seek, obtain, or provide reproductive health services. But many pro-life groups say the Biden administration unfairly uses the law to target those individuals seeking to rescue babies from death by abortion. In 2023, the Department of Justice indicted 8 pro-lifers under the FACE Act. In August, the department convicted Herb Garrity, William Goodman, Lauren Handy, John Hinshaw, and Heather Idoni. And in a separate case a month later, Joan Bell, Jonathan Darnell, and Jean Marshall were also found guilty. These advocates are currently being held in a detention facility in Northern Virginia while they await sentencing, and they could spend up to 11 years in a federal prison. We recently spoke to one of Lauren Handy's lawyers, Peter Breen, vice president and head of litigation at the Thomas More Society. He explained more about the FACE Act and why it's deeply concerning that so many pro-lifers have been indicted in recent years. Peter, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Glad to.
Peter, a lot of more than usual number of pro-life advocates have recently been charged under the FACE Act, and this is something that your firm has been very involved in. What is the FACE Act?
Well, and so the FACE Act is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. It really has 2 parts. One is it is intended to stop what we would call the clinic rescues, where folks would go and they would peaceably sit in front of the door of an abortion clinic. You know, so it's a very peaceful thing. It draws its genesis from the American Civil Rights Movement, which itself then goes back to Mahatma Gandhi in India. So the very, very peaceable nature of it. And so unfortunately, the pro-abortion side, with the enactment of the FACE Act, turned that into a federal crime. And so that is that's a great shame that we would do that at a federal level. There's no need for that. There are local laws that deal with it. On the other hand, the FACE Act is being used against pro-life advocates on the sidewalk, and it has been used in both the Obama administration and the Biden administration to try to shut down legitimate, appropriate sidewalk counseling. And so you saw that in the case of Mark Houck,
yes,
the pro-life advocate in Philadelphia, who was charged 2 counts of FACE Act violations and then dragged out of his home by 20 FBI agents first thing in the morning. A horrible, horrible instance. And so really, when you look at the way they've used the FACE Act now, trying to say that legitimate, legal sidewalk counseling is somehow illegal or somehow obstructive or a violation, that's where we've been dealing with those issues with Mark Houck. And again, so that's where the FACE Act is right now. Right. Under the Obama administration, they had tried to say that when you are doing your sidewalk counseling ministry, that if you're talking to someone who happened to pull into an abortion facility in their car, well, you're obstructing the car behind them. And if it was any other issue beside abortion, the government wouldn't get near it. They would respect the fact the First Amendment protects your activities.
Right.
But again, we're having to fight that very great battle to try to defend our First Amendment rights against the FACE Act.
Yes, thank you for explaining that. And you mentioned Mark Houck. Thankfully, he was acquitted of those charges. Recently, a number of pro-life advocates in D.C. were indicted under the FACE Act. What was your reaction to that?
It's understandable. They did an old school rescue and live streamed it to Facebook. So in terms of violating the obstruction part of the FACE Act, I understand why that indictment was made. The problem there is a normal FACE Act indictment is a 6-month misdemeanor. It's like a trespass charge. And so if you undertake civil disobedience, the theory is you are laying your life on the line for the babies and to make a statement to the public. The problem is this. The Biden administration didn't just charge them with just a basic FACE Act. They charged them with a 10-year felony conspiracy against rights. They treated them worse than major drug dealers and also called it a crime of violence, such that if you had multiple FACE Act convictions, you would be treated like a 3 strikes you're out person And so this is really the place where the Biden administration has gone beyond any prior administration. Not even Obama administration was doing this.
Wow.
To attack these folks. And when you look at it, Congress was very clear. FACE is not meant to be this major felony when you go and sit in a clinic. They had lower penalties when you do that. But instead, the Biden administration is just running roughshod over both the intent of Congress and common sense. These folks have not committed a massive, serious felony crime of violence as is being charged.
Interesting. And Congressman Chip Roy on Capitol Hill has introduced legislation that would repeal the FACE Act. Would you be in support of that?
Yes, and we've been in support of all of that. And of course, with the way Washington is split right now, it's tough to get any movement on a substantive piece of legislation. But what you hope is by calling attention to this situation, maybe we'll get the attention of some folks in the court system so that maybe higher up in maybe the courts of appeal or the Supreme Court, we can get some action to stop this overcharging where they're, again, calling these folks, violent felons, which is just, it's an outrageous slander against the pro-life movement and these brave advocates.
Right. Peter, before I let you go, we live in the United States of America. Our nation was founded on the right to life. And at every corner, it seems like there's litigation against that basic fundamental right. Did you ever think that we would be at this point in our nation's history? And can you offer us any hope and encouragement for the future?
Sure. Whenever you come to a pro-life conference, you've always got to deal with this. So you don't want folks to get complacent, and so you want to make sure to give them the unvarnished truth of what's happening. But at the same time, there are incredible causes for hope. So in the pro-life states, look at all the babies being saved. But in the pro-abortion states, say like in Illinois, where your abortion rate is skyrocketing, other states like similarly situated. So we've got to have different strategies. But we're winning battles. We won a big injunction recently against an anti-pregnancy center law in Illinois. And that was the whole pro-life movement coming together. The activists came together, the legislators and the lawyers, and we were able to go into court and get great victories there. We are fighting back against the other side at every turn. And in part, the reason they're attacking us so hard is because it's working. Our advocacy is working. People are becoming more pro-life in their day-to-day lives and in their individual decisions. So that's the hope. I think the issue, too, we are in a time of great change. Time of great change across the country, every issue. But in the abortion issue, we're still post-Dobbs, and folks are still trying to figure out, well, what do I do now? How does my state regulate it, what have you? But I'm seeing so many causes for hope in the states that are pro-life, and then even in those states that are pro-choice on abortion, we are having sanctuary counties and cities for the unborn. We're doing all sorts of good things there and defending the First Amendment rights of sidewalk advocates so they can do their job and offer real alternatives to women in need.
Peter, thank you so much for sitting down with me and for sharing all your wisdom with us. Grateful for all the work that you do.
Hey, it's great to be with you.